Good morning. Thank you. Glad to have you guys here today. We're going to have a brief chapel service this morning, and then we're going to have the presentation of the Mary Morris Award for Exemplary Service to Society. And this is a special chapel for many of us. Dr. Mary Morris, I should say doctor, she's very much a professor here, was a faculty member at Lipscomb who courageously and graciously fought a battle with cancer while she was here. And unfortunately, that battle ended in 2005. But those of us who were privileged to know Dr. Morris remember what a tremendous impact she had on us personally and on us as an institution. She had an impact on her colleagues, her friends, and even more importantly, she had a huge impact on the Nashville community. So today we want to share, for some of us, some memories, brief memories of Mary as we think through this chapel and we think through the ceremony. But for the rest of us, this is a time where we recognize what a contribution Mary made to the spirit of this institution, who we are today, and who we want to be as we serve our community. I remember well that the president were here, he would tell the story. He was very new on campus. It was his first day faculty meeting that night, and I took him out to see Mary. And she was in the bed. We spent about 2 hours there, I think, and most of that time Mary was telling him what kind of president he should be. That was a wonderful moment for me because I couldn't get away with that. But she could, and she did it in a masterful way. And if you hear him talk, that is in his head almost every day. So we appreciate Mary. We appreciate this moment. We're going to appreciate our recipient of this award, who is very worthy, in just a few minutes. But first, let's go to God in worship. And following the conclusion of the worship service, we'll have the award. Today's devotional is going to be led by Hudson Parker and Ruth Henry.
Hi, everyone. So my second trip actually to Honduras was in the spring break of 2003. And it was about 30 Lipscomb College students and a handful of other chaperones. And we did several things during that week. But the one that I really remember the most was the time that we spent at Jovenes and Camino. And it was brand new at that point, a really just exciting place. And we spent some time there, and even though children had been there for about a year or a little bit less at that time, and we got some interaction with them, but mostly we built rebar and dug a trench around the property, and that was okay. But even though we were doing that type of work, we could still see the vision for that place that the founders had for it, that it was going to be a place that honored God every single day, and that their vision was to provide just a safe place, a good food, godly role models for these children, especially boys, off of the streets of Honduras. And just the beauty of the place was such a big contrast to those streets of Tegucigalpa. So that was my impression. My son-in-law, well, he wasn't my son-in-law at the time, he was 18, but Anton went there that summer and spent the whole summer, and he had similar thoughts that I did. Within a few months of when I went to Honduras, my friend Mary also got to go. Now Mary, she got to be with the children the time while she was there. And Mary, if you knew her, she was a people magnet. I mean, she loved people, and she just, people were attracted to her. But she was especially happy to get to spend the time with the children because Mary loved children. She was a teacher both by profession and in her heart, and she just loved kids. And so she was happy to spend that time with them, and she would have done anything that was asked of her there, but she was extra glad that she got to spend that time with the children. And she enjoyed that time so much that she really spoke about that with fondness and just excitement the rest of her life. She just talked about it so often, and she knew that the mission there of that place and so many other godly people that have been there since then and the founders was just so God-honoring, and that was what I think she loved about it. And there was a song that I wanted Hudson to lead this morning, but I was afraid that a critical mass would not know this song, so I didn't. But it goes something like this on the first verse. It says, "Give us a heart for the hopeless, the weary, the wounded, to those who are hungry, helpless, and poor. Let us see the sorrow, the pain, and the heartache that all the abandoned endure. And then the chorus says, to the last, to the lost, to the least of these, let us be Jesus today. And I'm going to tell you, Mary was really good about being Jesus to people. And, those words come straight from Matthew 25, where he says, whatever you do to the least of these, you do it to me. And, those children in Honduras, by the world's view, may be the least of these. But we know that in God's view, they're not. And Mary knew that too. And the founders of this wonderful facility called Holiness and Camino, and all the millions, probably thousands of people who have volunteered there since then, know that too. They know the heart for the people that work there and just that beautiful setting that this place is in. And Mary, like I said, she loved people, and she really, she got along with people of all ages. And so she was, like I said, she was so good at being Jesus, and she treated everyone with kindness and respect and love, whether they were children in Honduras or children here in Nashville, or college students at Nashville, or I see even some of our local government officials in Nashville. She just related to everyone equally well. And throughout her life, that was one thing that I remember so much about her. She was so people-oriented and loved people so much. She just had that shining light in her eyes, really. And the other thing I remember so much about her was just that deep and abiding joy that she had, that she never, ever lost. And she had a lot of good things that happened to her in her life, and she had some disappointments too, and she probably had some failures, even though I didn't know about any failures. She probably had some, but through all of that and that just terrible illness that ended up taking her life, she just never lost that joy and that love for being around people. She wanted people to come in, even when she was sick in her house. So she just never lost that. And Charlie and Lois, that's got to be a lot to do with you guys and the way that you brought her up. So just dedicating this, to the spirit of holiness, the spirit of Mary that is still in this place, and just what she meant to so many of us. And we get an opportunity today to see just a glimpse of her life. So we'll take a look at that next.
Some people are remembered by their actions. Others are remembered for what they leave behind. Few are remembered for both. Dr. Mary Morris was such a person. An education faculty member at Lipscomb University, she graciously fought a battle with cancer that ended in 2005, all while instilling in those she met a sense of service, compassion, faith, and hope that lives on today. For those who were privileged to know her, they remember what an impact she had on the students in her classes, on her friends and colleagues at Lipscomb, and in the Nashville community. She was a familiar face and a gentle voice, but a voice that would forever be heard loud and clear. In her honor, and so that her voice continued to live on, her family and friends established the Mary Morris Award of Exemplary Service to Society. With this award, special recognition is given to the one individual in the Lipscomb family each year who has demonstrated a high level of service to the community and to the church. Service comes as no stranger to Lipscomb. Here, students share their knowledge and their faith around the world, through missions, through education, through community service, and through a belief that we are all created by and are serving through our character and actions, one God. Mary herself envisioned a way for Lipscomb to share Jesus through community partnerships. She created Lipscomb Center for Character Development and helped establish Character Counts Nashville to improve individual character that so often can divide our community. The Mary Morris Award of Exemplary Service to Society has recognized many great individuals since its inception, including Nancy Moon Gonzalez, who developed schools and created Christ-centered curriculum for use in Honduras and Guatemala; John Lee, who extends God's love to impoverished areas by bringing them clean water; Andrew Crinks and Lindsay Glenn Crinks, who dedicate their lives to making a better place for Nashville's homeless community; Kim Tucker, who empowers single mothers with entrepreneurial skills that change their lives and the future of their families; Richard Good, who takes Christian education behind prison bars; Rob Touchstone, who brings God's living water to impoverished areas of the globe; Carrie Thornthwaite, who brings God's light to neglected and marginalized children locally and across the globe. Together, we appreciate and recognize all those who have and who will walk where inspiration, faith, and a servant heart guide them. Together, we remain committed to creating students whose academic excellence, faith in practice, and community service reflect our ideals of global citizenship. Together, We as a university family take pride in being an important part of our community, ready to lead through service learning, mission, and volunteerism today and tomorrow.
That's a great video that really captures Mary, her essence, and what she has done for Lipscomb. Well, today we're pleased to honor Mary's memory with this award. And Mary's family has been so gracious in support of this award. And we are so pleased that they do that, but we're especially pleased that many of them are here today. Charlie and Lois are here, Mary's parents. You guys would stand up, please. Appreciate it. Mary's brother, Chris, and two of his daughters, Elena and Avery, are here. Guys, stand up. Come on, Elena, Avery. And we're working very hard to make both Elena and Avery Lipscomb students. And then also extended family members, Bob and Beverly Best. We appreciate you being here. Would you stand and let us welcome you? And you're going to get to hear from a member of the Morris family in just a little bit. We also have several board members here, which I think is really significant and important. And if you're a Lipscomb board member, will you stand up? Bob, I see you back there, Nika and David, so welcome them and thank you all for being here. So the Mary Morris Award for Exemplary Service to Society, and that's quite a name, by the way, Mary Morris Award for Exemplary Service to Society, is to be conferred each year on a member of the Lipscomb family, quote unquote, who has demonstrated a high level of service to the community and to the church. Honorees, this is the qualifications for this award. Honorees also exhibit a spirit of volunteerism. They engage in meaningful civic activities in the community that help spread God's light. They demonstrate a commitment to Christian missions wherever they may be. They are an advocate for Lipscomb University and exhibit vision in creating new avenues to expand Christian principles in unconventional ways. Now, those are characteristics of Mary, and they are characteristics of those who receive this award. Past recipients of the Mary Morris Award for Exemplary Service to Society are listed in your program. You just saw them on the screen. We have a few of those past recipients here today. I see a few of them. If you're a past recipient, would you stand? We appreciate you all being with us today also. This year, I'm pleased to announce that the 2018 Mary Morris Award for Exemplary Service to Society is presented to Steve Davidson, who, as you heard, is co-founder of Jovenas and Camino. And we're going to call Steve up in a minute, but we have several people here today that want to talk about Steve, hopefully well. They didn't ask me. Steve was my next-door neighbor in the ghetto for a few years. And we won't talk about that. But those were good times, actually. Can we change the subject? Yeah, we will. Immediately. We also have members of the Jovenas and Camino Board of Directors here. I'd like to ask those board members that are here to stand, and let's thank them for being here today and showing support for Steve. Now I'd like to invite a few guests to come and talk nicely about Steve and share remarks about his service and his work with Jovenas and Camino. Speakers will be Mark Ezell and Jonathan Seaman. They are both board members of Jovenas Camino. And Lynn Prady, family friend of the Davidsons and also a supporter, and David Solomon, who's chair of the University Board of Directors and a Jovenas and Camino supporter. So please welcome Mark Ezell.
I was worried I couldn't speak when he said be nice, but this is such a joy for me to get to represent Martha and our children and literally the hundreds of families who got that call to say, let's go on a mission trip. who really have taught us how to honor our wonderful God by serving others. I think another name for this award could be Thankfulness Award, because we're thankful for you, Steve, and for Lisa. So where do I start when we're talking about Steve and Lisa? Oh, well, we start with Lisa. And the ministry that they've done over these many, many years. We could start with how uncomfortable they are today because they always want the credit to go to someone else. We could start with the humility that Steve has taught all of us as followers who later then became leaders and had been taught to reflect Christ's servant-like attitude. We could start with the facts of the magnitude of their reach. Over 75 mission trips in the last 25 plus years. Over 330 families representing over 1,350 people, plus college students and teens, bringing that total to over 2,260 people that have been led on a mission trip by Steve and Lisa. Or we could talk about the other servant leader roles, his 30 years as minister, 25 leading Torch, 41 at Lipscomb. Or we could start with their family priority and how many times on dozens of vacations, it was actually on the mission field in Honduras providing housing and food and clothing and love to those people. And how Emily and Taylor have continued that legacy of serving those people in need. Or maybe we could start with the quiet, unassuming way that Steve and Lisa deep dive and love on people so intently. And individuals like Wendy and Jaime and Walter and Miguel and Edwin and Michelle and so many more. Or we could start with Steve's leadership skills and vision in the co-founding of Hoviness and Camino and building a home for those 60 street children who've been cared for these last 14 years by Steve, Lisa, and the others that they have motivated and recruited. You know, they became so concerned about those abandoned street children. I remember we would see boys on the streets begging and know that they were actually child slaves, that were being abused and required to beg for money, and then that money would be taken away from them. And that Steve and Lisa really, along with several others, said our trips to come and bring a month's worth of clothing or to provide some housing just simply isn't enough to care for these boys, and something needs to be done. So the Davidsons began to share their compassion and their vision and how we could help build a home, that a home should be built for these young men, and they should be cared for from childhood to manhood, given educational and technical opportunities, a safe and warm bed, good nutritious food, and mostly shown the love of Christ. And so Hoviness continues to carry out that mission. But honestly, Steve and Lisa would be going, no, you start and you end with one thing, one focus, Jesus. Jesus' death for us that saves us, Jesus' love, Jesus' gift of righteousness, Jesus' presence that lets us be known as God's children. It's Jesus' pursuit. He and He alone is really the reason that the Davidsons have given their lives to serving others in His name. So we will start with how God has taken this family and shown the Nashville community, which certainly includes the Lipscomb community, how you don't have to have great wealth or positions of great power to motivate thousands of Americans to go on mission trips and serve the poor in Honduras to thousands of people in need. So Steve, it's my great honor to represent all the people for Martha and I and our children and so many more who followed you and Lisa as you have motivated us to serve the people of Honduras, and especially to be inspired as you've both led us with humility and compassion as the mission of Hoviness and Camino was created so that those children could find God's love and the protection and the nurturing that all children deserve. This is a Thankfulness Award, and on behalf of the boys of Hoviness and so many of us from the States who've gotten to be a part of this servant work, we are grateful.
Thank you for the opportunity to share about Steve and Lisa in this award. And Steve, it is an award for both you and Lisa. And thank you to both of you. I know that you are aware of the major impact that you've had on the lives of, say, 2,200 or so that Mark just mentioned. But you know, it goes way beyond that. There are a lot more people. Because Steve is an encourager, you have mentored a lot of youth ministers and church leaders who through the years have taken groups to Honduras, groups that you are not even aware of. In the late 80s and the early 90s, those of us that were working in youth ministry at that time knew that a summer camp experience and a mission experience would become two of the most important events in the lives of our young people. Foreign missions or short-term mission trips were new to most of us back then. But we had a need and we saw an opportunity. And Steve was one of those leaders that influenced a lot of people to consider taking groups to Honduras and then later to Jóvenes en Camino as a place that would meet those needs. Countless numbers of young people and adults were impacted by those trips. I've personally seen hundreds of lives changed through short mission trips and short-term trips that I've been involved with over the past 26 years. I've seen lives changed. I've seen my life change because of the work in Honduras. Lifelong friendships have been created. There was bonding among brigades and teams that cannot happen in a classroom or in a church building. It can only happen when you experience walking through a neighborhood, handing out clothes, handing out food, giving a Bible, putting on a VBS program where it's translated into the native language, or working side by side with a Honduran brother and sister as you build their house, and their thank you is tears running down their face. Or you go to Jóvenes to paint building after building and push wheelbarrow after wheelbarrow of concrete, trying to finish a sidewalk that never ends. You enjoy soccer games, and you enjoy shade tree conversations that could go on for days, and hugs that you will remember for a lifetime. These are the memories and the life-changing experiences that thousands of people literally across this country have experienced because Steve and Lisa and others like them demonstrated and encouraged others to give a cup of water, to clothe me when I was naked, to visit me when I was in the prison. That's what you've shared, Steve and Lisa. And you shared that with people that passed it on as the torch was carried from city to city, from country to country. I had the pleasure of worshiping with Mary Morris. I was there when she encouraged Brentwood Hills and their members to get involved with a Friends Speak program to help teach English. A course that taught the Bible, but it taught English. She was a self-starter, an encourager, a dreamer, and someone who wanted to leave a lasting impact. She did that through her life, and Steve and Lisa have followed that example and do the same. Steve is a very humble, Christ-centered person, doesn't want recognition for himself, as Mark has pointed out, always giving the glory to God. He just wanted to be the hands and feet of Jesus. And in many situations, his lifestyle and his reputation did that without him even knowing it, impacting others to follow in his footsteps. For that reason, many, many people have been impacted and their lives have been changed because of Steve and Lisa and their dedication to Christ and their sacrifice and the love for the boys and the staff at Jóvenes en Camino. So Goose, and you will always be Goose to me. Our days of intramural basketball and our time of being on this campus with Coach Meyer and others trained us with many things. Our relationship with Dr. McKelvey has been important over the years. And all of this brings me to say on behalf of the Jóvenes Board, Ronald Millon, and the staff and the boys at Jóvenes, congratulations. An honor well deserved.
Good morning. It's great to be here. I don't have any notes. I don't look very official, but I'm kind of representing friends and people that have loved, and I call him Goose too, by the way. He's Goose. That's what I've always called him. My kids call him Mr. Goose, and they're grown. That's what they call him, Mr. Goose. So we go back a long way. I met Goose 38 years ago, I was counting, and my husband Bill and I used to go on dates to Steve and Lisa's house and eat their food. Sorry about that. I owe you some Charles chips. I know, I ate all their stuff. But we have shared life together. We have laughed a lot. We've cried. We've gone through births and deaths and everything you can imagine. But most of all, we've laughed, right? Goose gets really tickled at my husband and things he gets into, and he gets into some little escapades and says things, and things happen. Goose is always the first one I call, say, listen to what Bill did today. And so Goose has told me that's one of the greatest joys of his life, that hearing. So we've just enjoyed and treasured so many memories together. But I have to say, Lisa is the wind beneath his wings. She's the anchor. She's the one that really shows how to love and how to have compassion. So I can't honor Goose without Lisa, because he married out of his league. We all know that for sure. We went on the first family trip in 1997 to Hoviness. Thetfords went with us, and 3 other families stayed at Baxter. It was so special, and I know Kim feels the same way. It was like a magical week. And we got to see how Goose and Lisa loved these people. We got to see what compassion looked like. We got to see people who live so differently from us, and I'd never been to a third world country. So that seed was planted in our hearts, and it's been there ever since, and it's grown, and I know we've been back many times because of Goose and Lisa. I saw Hoviness as a dream and a vision of a few people. I saw just a land with a house on it, and then to see what God has done in all these years has been truly amazing. So they have been such a blessing to us. We've shared life together, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Goose and Lisa are closer than family to us. I don't know how that's possible, but they are. And so if you know Goose and Lisa, you just feel that kind of love from them. I was thinking about one little thing. About 30 years ago, we were at the beach with Goose and Lisa. And we always joke with Goose, he doesn't know who anybody famous is. He never know, like he may meet them, he's like, who are they? I don't know who they are. He doesn't know famous people, he doesn't know anything about pop culture, or nothing impresses him. No, stuff doesn't impress him. Like he has this plaid shirt he always wears. He doesn't have it on today, but he's worn it like 300 times. So if you see it, say, is that a new shirt? Because it's not. He doesn't wear anything new because he just doesn't care about that stuff. So really about 30 years ago, when we were on that trip, I was joking with him about that. And I said, why don't, you just don't care about things that most people care about. I said, what impresses you in people? He said, a changed life. That impresses me. Do you remember saying that? Maybe I said it. No. It was so profound, I guess you said. I thought maybe I said it, but no, you said it. But anyway, that's just a window into his soul. He loves people like that. And I think Goose sees people for who they can become because of Jesus. And he loves people the way Jesus loves him. And I think that spreads out to all who know him. So it's a beautiful day to think about Mary and what a special person she was. And I can't think of a better recipient than Steve Davidson, because he has loved us all well, and most of all, he's taught us how to love. So congratulations, Goose.
Lynn, you're the only one that can get away with some of those comments, I have to admit. Steve and Lisa, it does take both of you to get things done. Many years ago, you gently encouraged me to make and take the time to visit Honduras. I think you were actually surprised when we said yes, and with us came 4 children. While our first trip was almost 20 years ago, I recall vividly every day of that trip. Little did I know that this was our first trip would not be the last, and it was followed by many, many others. And it was on that trip that you shared your vision for Hoviness. Most involved in that moment was Lisa. I also recall a visit when you went with my son to take a group. And I do recall that hot Sunday morning when you were in church and you had to run out the back door. And I won't tell the rest of that story. But as we returned from each trip to Honduras, we could not erase those that we left behind. But we knew with certainty that we had been changed, and those that we encountered were encouraged, sometimes by our attempts to share and show the love of Jesus, sometimes just an embrace. Steve, thank you for being an encourager and an example to us and for us as we tried to be the hands and feet of Jesus. Steve, I have shared this with you and Lisa in the past, but I feel compelled to remind you that our visits to Honduras impacted Rita and I, along with all of our children, more than any other event or trip that we ever experienced or encountered. And I thank you for that. Know that each of our speakers have experienced your passion and good works in Honduras, and it has changed our lives, along with the hearts and soul of our children, and hopefully the lives of generations to come. But your passion for showing Jesus to young men and women does not just take place in Honduras, but almost everywhere you walk. You are constantly sharing Jesus. You have been and continue to be the architect of so many great works here at Lipscomb and in the Nashville community. In addition to family and Honduras, here are just a few of the great things that you have visioned and created and led over the past 35 plus years. 26 years ago, in 1992, you came up with the idea of bringing high school kids to visit the campus and learn about Lipscomb, and most importantly, hear about Jesus. You named it Impact. No one really knew how many would show up that very first year. 250 attended. Selfishly, as a trustee, I thought, this is great. They are paying to come to Lipscomb so we can convince them to go to college. But as the days have gone on and the years have gone on, that's grown from 250 to 2,500 when you look at the high school and middle school students that come here. And not only do they learn about Jesus, but they also learn a little bit about Lipscomb. And while they are here, many name Christ as their Savior. Steve, thank you once again for your vision. And now you have this big title, Associate Dean of Student Life and Senior Campus Minister. I guess I report to you now, is the way that works. But in that role, you and your team focus on the spiritual life and welfare of this university. I recall a conversation we had when the opportunity presented itself. And you wavered a little bit. But you are the person for that job. I know it can be demanding, but with your faith and the Father at your side, you encourage and lead wonderfully. We are so grateful for your gifts. And yes, he's been a leader in our church. You served as the coordinating deacon over international missions for many, many years. You ministered over the college class for a decade or two or three. I really don't have any idea. I know that we every Wednesday night, you had several hundred people enjoying Mexican food and fellowshipping because they loved you and they saw you as a spiritual leader. Steve, I know that you are not one, nor is Lisa, to ask or pursue the bright lights and the accolades. But today we hope you will grasp all the good that you and your sweet bride have accomplished and continue to do for so many young men and women here at Lipscomb, in Tegucigalpa, at Hovhaness, at Harpeth Hills, and so many other places where you choose to be. Your heart and passion for Jesus is why my son wanted you to officiate his wedding. Thank you, and thank you for showing Jesus to many all around the world. Steve, just last week, I was reading from Philippians, and as I read, I concluded that, Steve, you are my and our Epaphroditus. Epaphroditus was Paul's brother in Christ, co-worker, and fellow soldier. Listen as I read Paul's words to the Philippians about Epaphroditus. My fellow Philippians, I, Paul, think it is necessary to send back to you Epaphroditus, my brother, co-worker, and fellow soldier, who is also your messenger, whom you sent to take care of my needs. Indeed, he was ill and almost died, but God had mercy on him, and not on him only, but also on me, to spare my sorrow upon sorrow. So these are the words I share with you. So welcome him in the Lord with great joy, that is you, Steve, and honor people like him, because he almost died for the work of Christ. He risked his life to make up for the help you yourselves could not give. Steve, we thank you for that help. We all need your vision, your energy, your patience with us from time to time. So, Steve, thank you for modeling Jesus in powerful and unforgettable ways to me, my family, your Lipscomb family, the Harpeth Hills family, and each of those young men in Honduras today and tomorrow. Know that we are grateful for your leadership, your grace, and your vision to make a difference in the lives of many, young and old, those in Honduras, and of course right here at Lipscomb. And you are certainly a deserving recipient for this honor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark, Jonathan, Lynn, David. Appreciate it. Steve? And why don't we have Lisa come up too? Lisa, yeah. Come on up. It couldn't be done without you, I know. So, Steve, for everything you've heard, for everything you've done, for the spirit, and in the spirit of Mary Morris, I am delighted to present you with this plaque and with this check.
See how I help?
Yes, she helps. She always helps. David, thank you. And the reason I ran out the back of the building is it's called the Honduran Revenge, but we won't describe that. And thank you, Jonathan and Lynn. Goose, yes, but I do have a new nickname, and Bob Wood gave it to me. It's Goosance, because similar to nuisance. I'm a nuisance. And so just the words that you shared, and Mark, thank you for your words. And I really was very uncomfortable receiving this until Ruth said what she said. And Mark also kind of said it out there, but I don't pay much attention to what Mark says. But he said, this is really about being thankful. And Lisa and I together are so thankful. And when you mention Mary Morris and her passion and her vision, sitting over there, I thought, oh, I know why we're all here. I know why I'm here. And it's all about Jesus. It's about Jesus. And he's the one that's receiving glory right now because of a life well lived. Yeah, I wish it had been longer. Wish he was still here. But I also thought, tomorrow is Good Friday. It's a dark day in history. It's a sad day. And, then you have the in-between time, the time in between Good Friday and Sunday, which is Easter. And I thought, wow, Mary Morris, because of what happens and what we'll celebrate this Sunday, we get to see her again. And I think she sees us now. I don't know how that works, but I think she is so proud of her mom and dad and her brother, her family, and all of us. And so I thought, wow, this is why we're here. It's all about Jesus and the fact that one day we will see him. We'll be united together, and we'll be able to rejoice together, and we'll be able to celebrate together and laugh together and cry together. I think a little bit of tears, but it says he'll wipe away all tears. But I think that's what it's really all about. When I was asked almost 30 years ago to go to Honduras, I had no idea what I was doing. I had to Google it, which is getting out my encyclopedia and flipping. Oh, it is a country. And Carl McKelvey, a mentor of mine and a number of you in here, he's the one that invited me to go. And I told Lisa I was going. She said, oh, okay. The kids were small at the time, Emily and Taylor. And you're leaving. You're leaving. I'm almost finished, I promise. And so I go, and it was life-changing for me as it was for Mary Morris. As a matter of fact, what I remember about Mary is that she was going to go to Honduras to visit Nancy Moon. And but she was uncomfortable going by herself, and so she got in touch with me, and I said, hey, you don't need to go by yourself. Go with our group, and then when we get to the airport, make sure that Nancy's there and that you're in good hands. And I just remember her face. I remember her eyes sparkling, and that joy, and then the conversations after we returned, and how it was life-changing for her as it was life-changing for me, many years ago. And so when I think about that, I think about her passion and her love for Jesus. Then it's easy to be able to receive something like this because it's about Jesus. And this is really, Lisa's name has been mentioned many times, and really it's about her. It's, I've said this, she doesn't like for me to say this. I'm just kind of the empty suit. She's the one with a heart, and she's the one that, went to a village where Jaime and Wendy, kids that were like Emily's brother and sister and Taylor's brother and sister. I remember working there, and someone was saying, "Where's Lisa?" I said, "I don't know." And I looked out, and she's in the middle of this gang, street gang, and she's got this flip chart, and she's talking and telling the story of Jesus. And at the end of the day, we kind of, stay away from them. Well, Lisa's right in the middle of them. At the end of the day, as we're walking off this mountain, they guarded us. They walked with us, like, don't touch these gringos, and they were like our angels. And really, it was Lisa. And so I'm so thankful for her heart and for her love. And I'm thankful for the influence that going down to Honduras has had on Emily and Taylor and their spouses and our grandchildren, their children. All of them have been but two. And it has been life-changing. And so from the bottom of my heart, I thank you, Mr. and Ms. Morris. Thank you for this award. And it really is about Jesus. And I'm thankful that because of Easter, you'll get to hang out with her. You'll get to see her. And she's good. We're not, but she's good. God bless. Thank you so much.
Chris, would you like to say a word on behalf of the family?
I didn't make notes either. I'd planned on making just a couple brief comments. And as soon as I saw a picture of Mary up there in Honduras, everything I thought of just kind of went out the window. But when you lose someone that you love, it's, you have many difficult days. Holidays and birthdays, anniversaries are difficult, but there's also special things that come about. And this day to us is very special. To see so many people that have been so kind to our family over the years. This is the one chance that we get a chance to go back and see so many friendly faces that we wouldn't otherwise get to see. And to get the opportunity to thank you for the love that you've shown to my sister over the years while she was here, and to our family since then. Mary was motivated out of love. She loved Jesus, and there's no question about that, and that's why she did the things that she did. She loved those kids in Honduras, and she loved everyone she came in contact with because of her love for Jesus. Just, I'm sure that that Goose was, I feel like I know you now, I'm going to call you Goose, you were motivated and did the things that you did out of a love for Jesus. There's one thing that Mary would have wanted to pass along to my kids, and that's the one regret that I always have, is that she didn't get to know my kids. And the one thing that she would want to teach them is about her love of Jesus and the role that service plays in your faith. And so this day gives each award winner the opportunity to pass on that message to my kids. So I just want to thank Lipscomb for that, and we really appreciate it.
So in many ways, this is one of my favorite chapels times of the year. It's also one of the hardest. But we appreciate the Morrises being here. What a well-deserved honor. Steve, Goose, my former ghetto neighbor. I wouldn't have thought it back then. No, just kidding. Just kidding. We love you, Steve, and appreciate everything you've done for Lipscomb and everything you do in the service everywhere you go, and appreciate that greatly. Will you pray with me, please? Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you as we approach the Easter time here, so much for the gift of your Son, and we thank you for the power that gives us to live our lives victoriously. We thank you for the example of service that he set. We thank you for Mary's life and the way that she lived her life and the spirit that she left us here at Lipscomb. We thank you for Steve and Lisa and everything that they have done as they live their lives for you, their lives of service. Father, we're so grateful for that gift, and it's through your Son's name we pray. Amen.